Hi everyone, let's talk about the 1975. The pop rock phenomenon known as the 1975 have been doing it since around the early 2010s, starting out with their first few EPs with Sex, Face Down, Music for Cars, releasing their debut self-titled album in 2013, that received some notable attention. Slowly but surely, they've been building a fan base that is larger than anyone would have expected it to be. Mostly made up of like teenage girls and girls that are really sad, or boys, you never know. I've always associated their fan base with like teenage girls, mainly because everyone I've known who's like the 1975 have been teenage girls. But I digress, there are fans that are not teenage girls. And the music that they make can be vague, can be cliche, can really try to grab that emotional side of someone. They really like to take that sound and that style and try to gravitate towards people that are also into that style. Whether it's depressed, sad, moody, angry, whatever it is, the 1975 have done it to mild results, for me at least. Notes on a Conditional Form was set to be released like early this year, but the band constantly kept pushing it back and back and back. Luckily, we finally got it out on album form, and people have gotten their vinyl copies, people have gotten their pre-orders shipped to them. I wasn't too ecstatic about this album. I didn't care about it all that much. I was going to listen to it, but nonetheless, still didn't care. However, some of the teasers for this album were actually pretty good. My favorite single as a teaser is If You're Too Shy. An amazing track, by the way. It has this new wave synth pop flair to it with a pop rock edge that only the 1975 could bring. Matt Healy's vocal performance on this track is stellar, but quiet and subdued. You have these pulsating synths that are on top of this very fragrant and lovely instrumental. You have a little bit of a sax solo on the outro, and the hook on this song is incredibly infectious, incredibly catchy. I also did enjoy Frail State of Mind, as well as the really, I guess, left field People. One of the punkiest songs the band has ever written, and is the only punk song on this album. Yeah, I will say something about this record that might turn people off. There are very misleading singles for this album. I think the one single that really kind of captures most of this album is Frail State of Mind, because a lot of the tracks on here, maybe some of the interludes or maybe some of the instrumental passages, are these future garage tracks that feel more or less like a burial B-side. However, they're kind of good, so I can't really deny them. Jesus Christ 2005 God Bless America was also released as a single featuring Phoebe Bridgers. And initially I didn't care about this song, and still in the context of this record I really don't care about it. It's this really dreamy, syrupy guitar ballad that's just kind of in one ear, out the other. And it's interesting, a lot of the songs, or at least a good bulk of the songs, have a very interesting country tinge to them, especially during the middle half of the album. Now, getting into specifics of this album, you have 22 tracks, 80 minutes of runtime this thing is. I'll be upfront and honest and say that this album is quite bloated, and there's this interesting failed attempt at trying to be political, a pseudo-political album, which kind of falls flat after like the first 4 tracks. The opening track, more or less, is just a vocal sample of Greta Thunberg, who basically delivers this interesting speech. I won't deny it's interesting, but it doesn't play into the rest of the record. Like, maybe if this record had like a really clear focus of what it was doing, it would be a better song. However, I don't mind listening to the song because it has a good instrumental behind it, and Greta is speaking some truths. Even at 5 minutes long, the song doesn't really get that tedious or boring for me. And I like how it plays into the next track, People, saying that we need to rebel, we need to do something, we need to change, breaking the rules because the rules suck now. After the song, we get an interlude track, which happens more often than not on this record. Despite some of the interludes being 2 minutes long on this album, there are some that are actually pretty interesting, like the track The End, Music for Cars, Streaming, and There Because She Goes as well. Maybe the one song that is almost a song, almost an interlude, it's this weird in-between track The second to last track on the album, Don't Worry, is probably one of the weakest. The vocal modulations on Matt's voice are just too alien for me to really connect with. The instrumental is also kind of unflattering as well, and the song doesn't really coalesce into anything that other songs on this album were doing better. The last track on the album, however, is actually a really good closer. Guys is basically a synth pop ballad that is basically Matt meditating on the band and what the band has done for him. It might be very surface level, but it's the 1975, what do you expect? Now, if I were to go into detail for almost all of these tracks, I would be sitting here for a long time. So let me sum up a lot of the songs for you in a few short sentences. For the future garage tracks like Frail State of Mind and a few of the interludes, most of the time they're actually pretty good. Sometimes they can be a little tedious, like the track Having No Head, a 6-minute track, the longest on here. It kind of doesn't have a sense of direction. It kind of does its own thing for the runtime. For the country-tinged and romantic ballads like Jesus Christ 2005, God Bless America, maybe Roadkill as well, Me and You Together song, a few others, I can't name all of them again. However, these songs have some pretty good ideas to them, and sometimes they actually are some of the highlights. But other times, like for example, Jesus Christ, I get pretty bored listening to them, and especially the middle portion of this record where they all kind of come together. Where you have the middle portion of this album block of songs that are in this style, in this vein, the songs get pretty monotonous, pretty tedious. There are some other outliers on this album, like the song People or the track Nothing Revealed, Everything Denied, which is a track with some really lush and quaint piano keys. Now that I'm thinking about it really hard this time, this song reminds me off of something Quelle Chris and Chris Keys just recently did on their album Innocent Country 2. It just has that vibe, it just has that flair to it. I don't know why. And I don't really know if Matty Healy even knows about those two artists. I really don't know. But it just really reminds me of that sound from that album. Going back to the track People that I alluded to earlier, one of the punkiest songs in the band's discography, period. I love the throttling and distorted guitar riffs, and Matt Healy's vocal performance on this track is wild. Maybe it's a little too distorted for my liking, but still it has a lot of energy, a lot of catharsis to it, one that is undeniably good. You also have the track What Should I Say, which sounds like the 1975 is trying to do the sound of 2017 mainstream pop, rap, R&B fusion, like the same vein as a Charlie Puth. It's not one of the best songs on here, but it's definitely not one of the worst. The vocal modulations are kind of weird too. Overall, it just feels a little too alien for my liking, but again, the beat's not bad. I also want to point out to the song Shiny Collarbone, which might sound similar to some of the other future garage tracks, but this one has a very distinct sound to it. It almost reminds me of something that would have been used on one of those Instagram videos like Blossom or 5-Minute Crafts. I know it's a weird comparison, but it just has that very person-friendly, viewer-friendly sound to it. Last but not least, I want to mention the track If You're Too Shy, Let Me Know. I know I mentioned the song earlier, but I cannot get over this song. It is amazing. It is so good. It sounds like what you would get if you mix the sounds of Destroyer a la Kaput with the pop rock of the 1975 with a little bit of a new romantic side to it. It sounds so fun and almost bouncy in a way, but the very fragrant synth pop production behind it is just beautifully crafted. Well done. I don't know what happened on this song, but they really came through with an amazing track. Again, catchy as all hell. And really, that's all I gotta say about this record. It is bloated, it is long, yes, it might sound like their head is far up their ass, but I kinda enjoyed this record. No, it's not a highlight for the year, but it's not a bad album. It has its moments of greatness, and some of the best 1975 songs land on this album. Some of the most tedious ones also land on this record too, but it is an 80-minute album. It's one of the longest albums the band has created. But the songs that are good on this record overpower the bad ones. And I didn't actually mind listening to this album over and over and over again, because there are some catchy choruses, some infectious instrumentals, and some really intricate songs on here. Yes, they're using their influences a lot on this album, but I also feel like Matty Healy and company are not afraid to show their influences as well. So maybe some people might dislike this record. It's totally fine. I totally get it. But they kind of channeled something on this album. They conjured something that is accidental brilliance, in my opinion. Again, not a highlight this year, but some songs really do stick with me. For me personally, it is a strong B. However, I am curious to know what are your thoughts and opinions on this album down below. Let me know what albums you want me to review next, and that is it. Leave a like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below. Remember, this is only my opinion, because music is subjective.